Welcome back to the channel. We had a big week of Marvel Comics news, and I wanted to hold two of the subjects back for my good friend Dok, the Marvel aficionado himself. How you doing, Dok?
I am good. I am much better than Marvel Comics right now.
Well, this is big time. We finally got the details on the upcoming X-Men event in 2023, as well as the return, sort of Monica Rambeau. Apparently, Eve Ewing is not out of the Marvel Comics business. She's returning to Monica. But first, let's talk about the Sins of Sinister, the actual event that we're getting. I thought this was going to be Apocalypse and his four horsemen returning from Amonth. They're needing help. And you laughed at me and you're like, it's all that crap that you liked. And now it turns out it's actually all the crap that you liked. It's going to be Sinister and the Chimera and all his scheming, apparently.
Because that's a more interesting story than than something that got dedicated like one page in House of X, Powers of X. Chimeras and the Sinister in the future, that's been a focus, well, for a good portion of House of X and Powers of X, and in a lot of the X books coming after that. Whether or not at this point Sinister is just wildly overused, I would argue, yeah. It seems stupid to do this event, considering that all we've had for the last 12 months at least is Sinister as this, like, the sassy focus of the X-Men. Maybe this is the culmination of it. I can't quite figure that out, but all right, cool.
Well, here's the details we have. Marvel revealed the X-Men's next big event will be titled Sins of Sinister. The storyline will throw the X-Men into a world in which Mister Sinister has emerged victorious and throws all mutant kind off a major loop. Enter now the Sins of Sinister, a new world, a new disaster. Mr. Sinister's plan come to fruition beyond his wildest dreams and his darkest nightmares. Can the X-Men survive the experience? Can anyone? Discover how twisted mutant kind becomes when Mr. Sinister achieves victory in Sins of Sinister, a new crossover coming to the X-Men. What we said last week regarding there's too many X-Men events and too many crossover events going on holds firm. I'm not particularly excited about this. Like you said, there's been a lot of Sinister stuff out there, and it's almost guaranteed Kieran Gillen's going to write this. That's almost his character now.
Sassy bitch Sinister has been Kieran Gillen's character since Uncanny X-Men Volume 2. He made an interesting, kind of scary villain into a pathetic bitch. The way that they describe this story is kind of interesting to me, except for the fact that it seems like it's just another alternate reality future. It's the same as parts of Inferno, the same as Lives and Deaths of Wolverine. It's the same as Ages of Apocalypse, or, I'm betting Exodus is going to have a big role in this, considering that what they've done in, I think it's been Immortal X-Men, with them showing like Sinister versus Exodus in the far-flung future, with Exodus as the giant phoenix god thing, Sinister getting eaten, and the whole thing with all the clones and him resetting the timeline each time something doesn't go his way. That's what they're going to end up doing with it. And honestly, we've seen this game plan, the exact same storyline you've seen 37 other times in the past 10 years, but this time with Sinister instead of Apocalypse, instead of Wolverine, instead of Moira.
The good news is this is the story that you wanted, not the story that I wanted. And Jordan White will be overseeing it, so it's almost guaranteed that it's going to go well.
Your definition of well and mine are probably not the same thing. But yeah, considering Jordan, well, honestly, it doesn't surprise me that Jordan White is, because the story format is literally the only story format that he knows how to do. It was, hey, we saw what John Hickman did here, and he kind of just did a variation on these other 17 things that we've done in the past, going back to Days of Future Past. Yeah, so we're going to do that exact same story format, but with Sinister.
I am Sinister's out. I think a lot of people are kind of feeling the same way. He's the main villain in like 3 different comic books right now. It's absolutely ridiculous. Now let's go talk about the other big Marvel Comics news that I haven't covered here on the channel. Monica Rambeau has been Captain Marvel, Photon, Pulsar, Spectrum, and now she's going back to Photon, apparently. Monica Rambeau, Photon, comes from writer Eve Ewing and artist Michael Santamaria. The new series will see Monica out on her own without a team as she begins to realize the full potential of her powers as Photon while taking on dangerous new threats. Monica Rambeau is a pretty decent character, not really utilized correctly for the past, decade, maybe a little bit longer. Eve Ewing showed a lot of promise, but then kind of left Marvel Comics. The promo art looks absolutely atrocious, but it's an idea.
Now, that promo art that they showed, I think that's the cover that's being done by Lucas Wernick. I can't really tell, though, but it's more that photorealistic tracing bullshit. Am I down to see a Monica Rambeau story? Hell yeah. The last time we got to see her was in the Ultimates a few years ago. Al Ewing, no relation, did a pretty good job in that book. And in fact, actually, the way that he did, the Ultimates and Ultimates 2 was, I wanted Al Ewing to take Fantastic Four because of the way he did kind of the science explorer stuff in Ultimates and Ultimates 2. And I think Al Ewing is a much better writer than Eve Ewing.
Well, yeah, she's written about 12 comic books.
Yeah,
Al Ewing's been writing comic books for a decade.
Exactly. So I'm not going to directly compare. What I'm saying is, the last time we saw Monica, she was in pretty good hands and she was going in a pretty good direction, becoming a more central character to the Marvel Universe. I hope Eve Ewing is able to kind of grab the baton from there and run with it. And I hope it's not a complete kind of resetting of the character. I hope it's more of a continuation of Ultimates Monica Rambeau. Al Ewing kind of rehabilitated that and made her a more strong leader, kept her sense of humor, but really kind of made her a strong leader again, like she was back in the Avengers in the day, but more confident as a leader.
I can definitely say Eve Ewing, despite being a new writer, definitely had the best take on Riri Williams and really made that character a lot more accessible and bearable, if you will, when she took over for that character. Obviously, that run didn't last all that long. We got some more details regarding Monica Rambeau Photon. From the New Orleans Harbor Patrol to the Avengers to the Ultimates, Monica Rambeau has been a leader and a team player her entire life, but now she'll face a reality-shattering crisis that she'll have no choice but to take on single-handedly. In order to do so, Photon will need to reach new heights of her incredible abilities and then surpass them. In a revelatory journey spanning time and space, fans will behold Photon's true potential. The adventure begins when Photon is charged with making a very special, very cosmic delivery. What should be light work for Monica becomes increasingly complex and dangerous due to a threat from beyond and family drama. I don't think you're going to get to see her be a confident leader. It sounds like she's going to be running solo on here, but we're getting family drama, Doc.
She's going to be way out in space, and what? She's going to be getting fucking yelled at on her Apple Watch for not being home for Graham's 95th birthday dinner. Like, seriously, if that's the kind of family drama that we're going to get out of this, please, for fuck's sake, drop that angle fast. I like the general concept of this. She's out doing something relatively rote, ends up embroiled in something way, way bigger than possibly expected, something she's really not prepared for, and needs to take it on single-handedly because reasons. That being said, this seems like so she's already extraordinarily powerful. This is a very, very typical Marvel, hey, we have a female character that we want to get over. Let's just give her more powers and now claim she's the most powerful thing in the universe. That'll make people like her, right? Like they've spent a good number of years recently doing with Carol. No, you don't need to do this. You don't need to just keep overpowering and like power creeping a character into popularity. And it does not work. I don't know how many examples we need of that to prove that it doesn't work.
All right, Doc. We got you. Which one are you more excited to read? You ready to read Sins of Sinister or Monica Rambeau Photon? Which one are you up for?
I'm actually more interested in reading Photon at this point. We haven't seen a solo Monica Rambeau story in a very long time, as much as I still don't trust Eve Ewing as a writer, as cliched, I guess, as the story here sounds. I really have always been a big fan of Monica. Like going back to the 80s, I liked her run in the Avengers. I loved her character in Ultimates and Ultimates 2. So yeah, I do want to see where that character goes. And because, well, to be perfectly honest, I've seen the stories format at this point. It's just plug in a new bad guy over it on Sins of Sinister. So yeah, at least there's a chance of Photon being a unique story, whereas Sins of Sinister is just the 78th Xerox copy of Days of Future Past done by the 98th worst writer that's been on X-Men in the last decade.
If you're a fan of strong black women in the Marvel Comics universe and you haven't met Reed Richards' new sister, you are absolutely missing out. She's super duper smart. She's definitely empowered. She ain't going to take no crap off nobody. Definitely check this video out. I talked about Joanna Jeffers, Reed Richards' long lost sister, introduced in the Fantastic Four by Dan Slott. If you're on a mobile device, there's a link in the video description.